Alright, today we're going to cover installing a OBS Chevy 850 cage. So this one, I'll preface this is a little bit different because this is a custom install in this truck. So things have been tweaked a little bit because it is a factory interior, but this way you guys can at least see where the factory interior and how it fits. Most of like the main hoop design is the same as the kit. A-pillars have changed a bit, so we'll try and make it as relatable to the kit as possible. So Mark's going to show kind of how he went about setting the outriggers, which is kind of the hardest part of this, just because they do float on the frame under here. So they kind of float on this. There's no real way to like set it. So he's going to show it how you guys should be doing it at home.
Yep. So first part, cut holes in floor, so you can get main hoop in and get it mocked up. Usually I just use a cutoff wheel and make square-ish holes. I tried something different this time and did a hole saw. Worked okay. I think it was like a 3-inch hole saw. Worked pretty good, I think. But the front is pretty close, so I mean, the edge of my hole is ½ an inch away from the firewall and ½ an inch away from the kick panel over here. So back on the back, it's like maybe got trim in the way. It's probably like 3/8 of an inch away from the pinch weld, and then I had to trim a little bit more for the main hoop because the holes were a little bit too far forward, but I actually kind of prefer to do it that way because then you can sink the tube back into here, and then your patch panel is actually a whole lot easier to make.
It's not a two-piece.
Yeah.
It's a one-piece patch panel.
Yeah, because otherwise you got to make a little half moon shape to go behind the tube and into it. So that's about general location of where those are. Kind of halfway up the back of this part of the floor where it comes up right here would be a good general, give you plenty of room around it if you want to do it that way. As far as outriggers go, I guess we'll come over there.
So this is probably the trickiest part with this style of trucks is the outriggers, because everything kind of, with the pre-notched kit, if you order it that way, everything kind of floats. Yeah. Because everything's kind of got to line up nicely.
So the outriggers are going to come just a little bit long, so you're going to have to cut them. But everything else obviously is all notched if you get a notched kit. So it's kind of difficult. Pretty much get the main hoop where it looks like it needs to be, where you think it should go, and then get the outriggers at least floating under there so you can get an idea. It'll be kind of hard, so I would leave everything just kind of lightly tacked up until you can get the A-pillars in it. And then you can really start setting things. You can set the lean back of the main hoop and all that. So it's not a big deal. It's mainly just the height of the outriggers. They can move front and back a little bit, and it doesn't change the main hoop too much because you can change the angle of it and get it to where it needs to be, and it'll all work out. But on this one, which is going to be really, really close to a notched kit, I am 2 15/16 from the body mount to the center of the tube, and then 3 1/4 from the bottom of the frame up to the center of the tube on the rear outrigger. Here on the front, we are 1 3/8 to the center of the tube, and then there's not really anything height-wise you can go off of because it's curvy. But if we go from the bottom of this body mount, that should be pretty similar on all of them. It's about 2 3/8 off the bottom of this body mount.
So then you can see where the rocker bar goes.
Yep.
It tucks in there.
With a pre-notched kit, the easiest way you're going to be able to do the rocker bar and set the front outrigger is I would do the back one, get it set so your main hoop's, you know, pretty close. Then put the rocker bar in, have something support it. We have stands over there that I'm using. You can use jack stands, those work fine. Hold the rocker bar up, get it level. Have it, you know, it's notched already, so it'll go into the outrigger on the back, and then you can just hold the front outrigger up into the rocker bar and fit it to the frame. You have to, since it's curved right here, you'll have to do a little bit of fitting on it, but it's not bad.
And depending on where your rocker bar goes, you may need to take off a little bit. I don't even know if I can get up in there and show you guys, but the main hoop kind of sits where it's notched into the rocker bar and the outrigger.
Yeah.
So you might have to take your grinder and just take that little nipple off the off of it.
No, nothing's tacked in here, so we can pop one out and show it here. So this is the front one, and that's just for the rocker bar. So it's a little bit deeper than the notch for the outrigger, just because when the A-pillar is in, the rocker bar's coming in like this, so it's just at a little bit of an angle.
And then the top, Mark's gone in and taken a sanding disc and just cleaned it up. They sit, because of the nature of how the CNC cuts, it cuts like this. So when it gets over to here, it's still a flat cut right there.
Flat.
So
and
we
then
take,
you got like some slag and stuff in there. So
so we take a drum and just basically just clean it out. It's not enough to change the design of it, but it's enough to clean it up and make for a good fit.
And better weld.
And better weld. A lot better weld.
So when you get this in here, like, you're pretty much always going to have to tweak them a little bit. You don't necessarily have to, but just to get the best fit, it's going to be better to tweak them just a little bit, and then you'll be able to get a nice close fit to where it's going to be easy to weld. As far as welding it, there's a couple options. You can break the outriggers off the frame and drop the whole cage. With the down bars in, it's a little bit harder to do
it can really only rock forward.
Right? Or you can just, you're already at this point essentially, so you just take the 4 bolts out for the body mounts and lift the cab up a little.
Yeah.
And then you can get to everything.
You want to show them where the A-pillar needs a little bit of notched up there?
Yeah. So it wasn't hardly any on the passenger side. I think the dash structure is a little different. But on the driver's side, I had
just
to notch
a
it
little
out.
bit. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just
so it fits tight up there.
I mean, it's probably 3/8 of an inch is about how far I had to go in it. Not much at all, but just enough that the A-pillar will slide up into it. And then there's also this insulation here that comes up, and there's a tab back here that holds it. So I just trimmed that, and then there's this wiring here that goes on that tab as well. So that'll get pinned back up. But
and a lot of you guys probably don't have factory wiring.
Probably
This
not.
is a full factory style truck, so there's a lot of factory wiring still left in it. So a lot more to deal with. But we'll, as we go further along, we'll keep you guys updated and show you guys a little bit more about fitting like windshield bar, which if you have a notch kit should go by pretty easy. That should be just putting it in there and going.
Pretty much just same deal with the
Yeah.
A-pillars, just cleaning up the notch a little bit. It's probably going to be up on the bend, so you might have to deepen the notch a little. To
Yeah,
make
we'll
it
show
fit
you
a
that.
little better, but
Yeah.
when we get there, we'll show it.
All right, so we're back, and Mark's got a little bit more fit up, so I thought we'd cover what has been fit and kind of show you a couple more tips and tricks for putting these in.
All right, so harness part, rubber mallet,
Yeah.
because it's a pretty tight fit. So you kind of have to, you got to rock it So you gotta like put one end kind of up in the bend, and then the other one is gonna be somewhere down here. You just kind of gotta beat it up into place. You might have to adjust it a little bit. The notch one should be really close. But I like to get it right in this groove on the back panel, just because it looks nicer right there. And then I try and get it as level as possible this way. Not a huge deal because the maintenance leans back, so it kind of...
Yeah, you might have to adjust the notches a little bit if you wanted to do that. Just because, and we'll kind of explain with the windshield bar, these, when you have a die make this bend, you can't, it doesn't stay perfectly round all the way through. So it's actually flattened here a bit, which is very minimal. Our bender doesn't allow it to happen much, but it still has some deflection here. So when you're fitting something like this, where there's a high spot back where my finger is back there, you're gonna have to take some out there just to get to fit nicely. Because our software, when we cut it, it cuts and thinks this is perfectly round all the way down, and it's more noticeable up on like this because it's the more of a bend you have, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
So, you can't avoid it, but you can make it fit pretty well.
Yep. So, got that in. That's, like I said, that's pretty easy. Windshield bar is probably the most annoying one, just because it likes to fall out. So it's hard to hold it up in there and try and see where you're hitting the notch and where you need to take a little out. So yeah, it's pretty much just below the center of the bend, right about where we put them. This one's a little bit lower because of the headliner in it. Like I said, full interior, so little tweaking things a little bit. But yeah, other than that, it's wherever it touches, take a little material out and just keep putting it back in.
Yeah, this, like I said, this one's the worst one. So it actually gets real deep right here, and that part of the bend, or that part of the notch, is actually deeper than a normal notch because of where this deforms at. So.
Yep. And then dash bar, this one was a little trickier. So this is actually a 98. So it has the modern dash in it. It has like cat-eye style dash in it with airbags and all that. So it had some extra stuff that the motion truck didn't have. So it had like studs over here for a brace it looks like for the airbag. So I had to cut those out to get the dash bar up in there. But other than that, it was pretty much the same. Kind of the same deal with the harness bar. You kind of got to put it in at an angle, just cap it up into place, and then it should pretty much go right in.
Yeah, the final few bars are pretty easy.
Yeah.
They're not...
Once you get main hoop and A-pillars in, everything else is just kind of like clicking it into place with a notch kit.
Yeah, the next real challenge is getting down bars out there. You gotta cut the bed and fit it up in there, but right now it's pretty easy. Then door bars are pretty basic also. You know, they come from like here, go down to somewhere in there. So all the notches should fit. You might have to touch this one up just because it does land in a bend, but it's not too terrible.
Yep.
So, all right, we'll catch you next time. Go.
All right. So, after door bars, all that stuff, I usually do down bars last. And so this one is a little bit different because we're not landing it on the frame like you would in our notch kit. That's what it's made for, is to go on the frame. So this one has an anti-roll bar going in it, so we put a tube down there. So I always prefer to land the cage on tubes if I can. So if you're putting a tube in, that would be my recommendation, is to land the down bars on the tube. But this one is getting anti-roll bar and like shock bar and stuff, but these aren't long enough to go all the way behind the housing to go on a shock bar.
On the kit.
On the kit.
On the kit.
We can do it longer, but yeah, if you're landing it on a bar, I would get the down bars unnotched if the rest of the kit is notched. Just a personal recommendation.
Yeah, I think normally the frame is, usually the kit is like here in this area. So that is about where it would land. That's where those notches are set up for if you buy a notched kit.
Yep. moving it over a little bit like that. It changes the rotation up here, and it'll obviously I don't think the bottom is notched anyway because it's going to land on the frame. But anyway, I started welding this one. I've got everything welded that I can get to before I have to drop it. So that's how we do all of our kits, all of our custom stuff, anything. It's all dropped. So everything's welded that I can get to. I got to everything around the door bars. The only things I haven't gotten to is like up around down bars and A-pillars and like windshield bar and dash bar and stuff. So I just left the outriggers tacked to the frame. So I'm gonna cut all those tacks and then we'll drop everything. We should be able to drop the cage about 4 or 5 inches, and then I'll be able to weld all the way around the main hoop and the A-pillars on the outriggers. And then once I get it down, I'll be able to move it around a little bit, enough that I can get to like the harness bar and the dash bar. So it's pretty straightforward. We like to not have gussets, so.
Yep, we like to weld all the way around. So you can add gussets if you're going to leave the cage not dry. If you're not going to drop it, you can add a gusset up into this joint and on there. I think it's 25% of that tube is what you can gusset. But we suggest dropping it because this is the easiest cage to drop.
Yep.
All you have to do is
any of the
break it.
Trucks are super easy because they're on outriggers, so you just break it off the frame, drop it down. The only thing that's weird on this is if you still have factory steering column mounts, it's a little bit tricky to drop. You kind of got to like push it back and angle it and stuff, but it's still doable. Yeah, that's about it. Pretty simple.
Yeah, that's about the extent of the cage kit portion. This truck's obviously getting a little bit more, and the bars are a little bit more custom than normal. Getting some rear suspension parts, and we're gonna paint it and make it look all fancy and put it back together.
Yep. So if you're well, obviously most people are going to be painting, but that's the other thing. Like once you drop it and get done welding it, don't put it back up until you paint.
Yeah, because then you have a bunch of bare spots.
Yeah.
Once it's down, paint it.
Paint all the tops of everything that you can, the front of the dash bar, the back of the harness bar, get to all that. It's still going to be a little harder, but it's not going to be nearly as hard as when it's all back up in place.
Definitely. All right. Well, I guess this completes the OBS cage kit. I don't know any other, other than lifting it back up and welding the outriggers to the frame.
Yeah, that's the last thing
as far
as like actual cage installation.
All right.